quiet in here. This is the war room.
Welcome to Cornhusker Corner with Blake.
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
I'm Brooks.
Is mayonnaise an instrument?
And you better bet your bottom dollar that these two brothers know how to handle business.
Here's a hand up to Thunder, who gives it back to Mike Stokes. He's going to throw it. He's got a man out. Yeah! 40. It is very close. 15, 10, 5.
All right, welcome to Cornhusker Corner, where there's no place like this podcast. As always, you're your host, Blake, my brother, Brooks. Thanks for being on the channel, watching the video. You're gonna have to already do that.
I don't know why I struck like a Riley Poole. Like,
you kind of just broke my concentration there.
Yeah, I did.
Interesting.
Yes, best-selling author Brooks Bradshaw. Yes.
Today. Yes, please like the video. I know we're in a goofy mood, but we're in a good mood. Because spring game just happened.
Great mood.
And everything like that. So we're just gonna really hop in. Let's go. Let's
do it. So I was there. It was a fun time. I think the sentiment going into the game was like, okay, we got this big prospect at quarterback. Everyone's trying to point to everything but that. Oh, I'm watching for the running backs. Oh, I'm watching for the wide receivers. I'm watching for this and that. Everybody knew we were watching Dylan Raiola. Everybody was. And pretty much like when you get a guy that high ranked in, you really just hope that, there's flashes there. You see something that points to the talent. And in my opinion, not only do we see that, but I saw a player that is much beyond where a lot of people are at his age. And I saw calmness. And it was funny, like his first drive in the game, the drive happened, and everybody it was sort of sigh of relief. Like everybody was sort of like, yeah, okay, he's good. And as the game went on, I was like, oh, he's really good. And then now you got people out there talking about, oh, he's a first round draft pick, he's this, he's that, and it's like,
see,
here we go.
The thing. Yeah,
here we go.
Here's the thing: the Kool-Aid is flowing.
Yeah.
But what I want to see, and I'm going to temper expectations. People are talking that he was fine.
Yeah,
he did what he was supposed to do. They weren't live. It's really easy to be calm in the pocket when you know you're not going to get hit.
Yeah,
right. You can sit there, you can make your reads now, and it wasn't just him. All the quarterbacks looked pretty calm in the pocket, and that's where you're like, I'm not going to get hit.
Yeah, that's encouraging.
Right,
that's encouraging.
I'm not going to get hit.
Mm-hmm.
And they were going through their reads and going through their progression. And I think above anything, like, don't get me wrong, Raiola definitely showed that, he does have like the talent that we all hoped he did. And a lot of these people, it's just their first time actually watching him play live outside of highlights, which are really just like touchdown,
mm-hmm.
touch. Like, this is their first time seeing him, the little boring plays that don't really show up on highlight reels. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where a lot of the hype is coming from. And it's somewhat justified, I will say. They definitely showed up his strength and everything, but I think it's more of a credit to what Greg Thomas has done there in his short time, right? Because even what Heinrich showed massive improvement over last year, like massive, pushing the ball down the field, throwing a little bit more accurate.
I mean, I'd say Raiola showed the most consistency in the passing game, probably. Had the highest number of really good throws, but the best single throw of the day was probably Heinrich's back shoulder touchdown pass to, Ja'Cory Barney? That pass was probably the best single pass of the day, and great ball skills by Ja'Cory Barney, too. We'll get into the draft, and we'll talk about him more as well.
But both him, and I think one thing that is definitely clear right now is it is a 2-horse race. Nothing against Danny Kalin, but he definitely looked like the third string guy. Based off of one Saturday afternoon, right?
Yeah, I mean, you never know. I would say you're saying 2-horse race, and I understand that. I think the benefit of Heinrich Harburg is he's, first of all, again, it looked like he'd grown a lot, but second of all, he brings us a set of skills that are different than the set of skills that Raiola brings. So if he has to come into the game, then it's like, okay, they have a whole other thing to think about. And likewise, if he wins the starting job and then Raiola has to come into the game, it's like a whole other thing they have to think about there. But I would go even further than you are. You're saying 2-horse race. I say, yeah, okay, I get where you're coming from. I say pecking order has been established. That's what I say. Within like, I think we have our obvious starter. If he plays with the consistency that he showed, he just brings an element to the passing game that is hard to teach. I think it was Rule or somebody who brought this up that's like there's conscious things that you can teach, that's like where to be, what to look for, things like that. But then there's subconscious things that happen within the game. It's like, I think maybe Prime or Rule or somebody like that said this. It's like, I can teach you what to do, I can't teach you when to do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's funny you brought that up, because I was going to like kind of have this question posed to you, but you kind of already gave your answer of where does the QB battle stand. And
again, one Saturday afternoon.
It's one Saturday afternoon. And again, these were kind of mixed teams. To Raiola's credit, something that he did, and really only him consistently, was move the ball with every offense that was out there against every defense. The other, like, Heinrich did it a couple times, but he definitely had some like stops against like some of the like when he didn't have the talent, like the 1s and 2s that were a little harder to move with, just because of experience, really. So, and then Danny didn't have a terrible day. Like, if you look at his stat line, he was perfectly fine, but you could definitely just see a difference there, right?
I think you just got to put it all in perspective, especially with the Danny Kaelin conversation. First of all, with when I said pecking order, I think Heinrich's going to have something to say about that. And he showed yesterday that if Raiola at some point in camp is lacking that consistency, if it's maybe he's bitten off a little more than he can chew, maybe the workload becomes a little too much, I think that Heinrich can take advantage of that. My point is just like with the ceiling of all of them, if they're all fulfilling that, Raiola is probably the starter. But again, let's put it all in perspective with how all the quarterbacks played, including Danny Kaelin. For a freshman like Danny Kaelin to show the poise that he showed, to not make too many stupid mistakes, he missed some throws, no doubt about it, but it wasn't like he was a deer in headlights out there.
Oh, no.
He was poised, I would say.
No,
he didn't have a great day.
He didn't have a great day, but he didn't have a bad day.
No.
Like, you could have like
let a good 2-minute touchdown drive.
Perfect example. 2 years ago, the spring game, Harburg got in the spring game, and he just whiffed on everything. Yeah. Everything. And he was the only quarterback that did. And I think that was still when we had like a couple walk-on guys. Like, he got outplayed by walk-on guys at the spring game. It was not like that, right?
Yeah.
There even the walk-on guys came in and did pretty good.
No,
I was a little impressed with them.
That's, I think, your best point. It's like
because
Glenn Thomas. That's the thing that's lost in
yeah.
all this. You got to give credit to Glenn Thomas. They all looked really good.
Yeah,
the Raiola is getting the majority of the attention, and for good reason. He looks good. He looks like, oh, that's their 5-star. That's their Trevor Lawrence guy. That's what he looked like.
Sure.
But you got to give credit to Glenn Thomas.
Yeah, and then you also have to temper your expectations. There's a lot like going on right now that's a little like, I know us Husker fans are so desperate for something good. We just are. We're desperate for something good, and we saw something good. We saw 2 interceptions. One that was really an interception, really, on the quarterback's part when Kaelin went over the middle late, throwing it back across his body. That you never do that; it never works out.
Yes.
But the other one was like a tip drill. But those were our only.
Raiola he threw it a little high and behind, but not enough where
hit him in the hands.
Well, it was a little high and behind, but the receiver should have made the play. It's like that was a little bit more of a gray area. And in the press conference, Raiola, as you're supposed to do, which again, showing maturity for his age, took responsibility for that. But the reality is, takes two to tango. Like, it was a little bit high and behind, but it was still in a spot where the receiver should make a play. I mean,
but my point to that is we held on to the ball. They were making good throws, and when they weren't. When nobody was open, they were getting the ball out. All of them they were getting the ball out in good places to where either their guys could catch it or he threw it away.
Yep.
I think that was the thing that impressed me the most about Raiola is when we were in the red zone, and when he was throwing those, basically 50-50 balls to the back of the end zone, to the sidelines in the end zone.
Yep.
He's putting it to a place that like his guy could catch it. It'll be hard for him to catch it, but he's the only one that's catching it.
Yeah.
So he's putting it at a really good space there. And I think that's a really big credit to the coaching, because some of that is instinct, but a lot of that is drilling it day after day after day.
No doubt. No doubt. And I mean, and again, we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but that particular characteristic is the characteristic that all great quarterbacks share, pretty much. I mean, you have some guys that are gunslingers and stuff like that, but if you really watch Mahomes, you watch Brady, you watch Joe Burrow, you watch those dudes, in 2-minute situations, they give themselves 4 chances when you know what I mean? It's never going to be second down and they throw a pick. You know what I mean? It's going to be like you talked about, like Raiola missed, but he put it in a potentially theoretically catchable position for his receiver and nobody else. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Which is all you want. Yeah. So very impressed with how he operated more than anything. Yeah. He showed a lot of arm strength and really good ball placement like we expected. But yeah, I was most impressed with just just how he operated and his like just even keel like we talked about. You know?
Yeah, and listen, like I know like I play devil's advocate a lot, and part of that just for like I have a soft spot for I have a soft spot for Heinrich Harger because I see a lot of like myself in him. Yeah. Like being like kind of like tossed aside and like somebody started on you that probably shouldn't. Yeah. And you know, like, so I like that underdog tale. Mm-hmm. But that being said, I do think, you know, it's definitely Raiola's job to lose at this point. Yeah. But something interesting I was thinking, and basically when he took off running that one time, a lot of our offense last year incorporated the quarterback in the run game, and that is not Raiola's cup of tea. He can scramble. He's not slow, but he's not a blazer, and he's not a tough. Like he's not a running quarterback, right?
It's funny. He's not like a pure pocket. He inherited a lot of the compact quickness and athleticism that of course you'd expect from an all-American center like Dominic Raiola situation.
Sure, but I think that they would be at a disservice to take that completely out of the offense, and then we're going to show stuff like that in the spring game, especially because stuff weren't live. So the quarterback situation, I do think it's Raiola's day one, but I think we have packages that have Heinrich in there because, well, one, you do still have to respect arm, because he can run. I mean, he can't throw, but then you also have the run in there. Certain matchups for certain teams, having that gadget in there, Rule's done that before at other schools. And it would take some of the pressure off of Raiola to have to do everything. If you can put like Tim Tebow when he was a freshman, right? They put him in there for running situations. But then they would every once in a while pepper in a throw. I think that they have certain situations where they might want that to be the case.
The reason I'm hesitant on it is because we only have 3 scholarship quarterbacks, right? So like, is it more of value to have the package situation like you're talking about, or is it more of value for Raiola? Like you're saying, oh, well, he just so that he doesn't have to feel like it's all on his shoulders. Well, you know what makes it really feel like it's all on his shoulders? Having a redshirt freshman as your backup quarterback. That's what makes it really feel like you're all as. So if let's say first game of the year, Heinrich goes out there in his package, we run with him, and he gets hurt, and then we have no backup quarterback. You know what I mean? That's my point. Is like, backup quarterback is so important. People are like, I know, oh, he's got to have a chip on his shoulder. He wants to play. Yeah, well, we all want to play. There's only one quarterback, unfortunately. That's the reality.
I'm just telling you, I'm kind of reading context clues also from stuff Rule says, especially about Heinrich. I don't think that he's going to keep him on the bench. Even though he is going to be the backup, he's not going to keep him on the bench. They're trying to win now. They don't think about what ifs. Like, and if they have confidence, and if, to your point though, if they have confidence in Kalen, guess what? They're already starting a redshirt quarterback. They have different skill sets. It's a different. I know it's different.
It messes up the timelines, you know, like because they're both in the same class, and Kalen's not as developed as Raiola. That's what
this is just a hypothetical thing that I think that we might see at some point, and this isn't even every game type of thing. Yeah. It's something that you show. So people have to be cognizant of it.
Sure.
Like,
okay. I mean, I could see
like the
that.
Wildcat, right?
Yeah.
The Wildcat used to be huge. They used to be huge until they decided.
See that. I think we will see that. To be honest with you, I think we will. It's just a matter of how much they use it. And my point, my overall point is just, man, like, One thing that, if there's one thing that Heinrich Haarberg proved yesterday, like we talked about, is that he's not going to just go quietly into the night and just let this thing, you know what I mean? To the point where, like, I think he definitely proved that he's a quarterback. He's a quarterback, and he not only is he a quarterback, but he's a very capable and sufficient backup for a Power 5 team, no doubt about it.
Mm-hmm.
I personally don't know if I see him being like a starting quarterback for any sort of like top tier sort of Power 5 team, and that's what we're trying to be. We're trying to be one of the top 5 teams in the Big Ten year in and year out. That's what we're trying to be, right? And I like Heinrich, again, just for where his story and where he comes from. But you just look at all 3 guys on the team, and it's just like, man, they're Nebraska legacy players essentially. They're guys who grew up rooting for the team. Like Fedoni talked about how it made me laugh in his interview. Fedoni was like, yeah, he was asked about tampering or something like that, and he was just like, look, growing up for like 7 Halloweens in a row, I dressed up as a Nebraska football player. He's like, this is where I'm going to play football. Yeah. So which really put all that to bed. But that's what our quarterbacks are. That's what I love about all these guys, to be honest. And I think that there's things to root for in all of them. So, but again, I just think Heinrich, he like Raiola, he lived up to the hype. So you got to give him credit there. But Heinrich is starting to prove doubters wrong. He's starting to get to the point where even people who doubted him last year are starting to get on his side and be like, okay, like there's things to like there. Like on his first series, the guy in the row behind me, actually, he was like, all right, sending Heinrich Haarberg out there. And then he threw a ball like hard as hell and behind a guy on third down. And he was like, that's Heinrich Haarberg for you. Uncatchable piss missiles. and like, it's true. Like, he's got a really strong arm. The thing that he's got to work on most is touch. Like, there's some truth in that statement, you know? I just think Glenn Thomas is doing wonders for him. So I'm excited to see where it goes.
Absolutely. So I mean, that's the QB talk, but let's get into what are some other positives. We mentioned the lack of turnovers. That was great. I don't think, did we even have a fumble? Like
fumble, traditionally we did. We had one, and it was Raiola fumbled a snap, but it was honestly, people spun it into a positive because last year when Jeff Sims fumbled the snap against Colorado and then picked it up like 3 different times and fumbled the ball like he's on the Three Stooges, and so they spun it into a positive because yes, Raiola fumbled the snap, but he dove right on it like a veteran should, like, so everyone was like, even that was good, but wasn't good. So we did technically have one fumble,
but that I wouldn't even say that really counts.
I say it counts.
Okay.
But huge difference. We had like 15 last year, regardless of the point. The overall point is that no matter how you count them, it was like only up. We had like 3. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like 3.
The running backs held onto the ball.
Yeah. I thought they looked good. They ran behind their pads. Both Emmett and Dante looked really good, in my opinion.
Yeah. And that's not even the whole room.
No.
Like I mean, we'll
the walk-ons looked good too. Little bowling balls that don't go down easy. I like that.
Yeah. Makuza, is that the guy's name?
It's Mazuka, I think is how you pronounce it. He's the brother of the transfer lineman that came in from Florida.
He had a couple good pass pros. Like that was something I noticed about the running backs that took a step forward was their pass protection. They got a little bit better about that. And again, it's really hard to tell in a spring game. And I want to reiterate that. And my Kool-Aid has not really been made yet for the season. I've been burned too many times. It is hard to quantify a defensive-minded person that is trying to go and get to the quarterback if they know they can't tackle him. They know they're already holding back. Even if they're not, there's something in their head that there's holding them back, right?
You're totally
they're not
right about
going
that.
towards anything because otherwise they're trying to get around, trying to slash, trying to get everything, right? So spring games just in general favor the offense when the quarterbacks aren't live and it's not like live periods like that. So
that's why Rule called this one the spring game shootout going into it. Like a couple days before, he had a press conference where he was like, this is going to be the spring game shootout. Because, that's a big factor. If you can't tackle the quarterback, like, it's really hard to assess the defense. It just is. A lot of players sitting out. But again, like you said, couldn't tackle the quarterback.
Yeah, couldn't tackle the quarterback. And there was definitely plays. I noticed more with when Dylan was in that, probably would have been at least a sack, or he would have had to throw it away, that he was able to get out because they weren't really going that hard.
One overall thing I noticed was the use of radios made almost our strategy completely different, like about how we operate as an offense. Last year, Marcus Satterfield in one of his first press conferences made a big deal of like, we're bringing the huddle back, we're bringing the fullback back, we're doing all this like old school stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I think what it was they looked at their QB room, they saw they had a bunch of athletes but not very good throwers, and they were like, okay, this is how we're going to have to operate. And now they're looking at their QB room and they're like, okay, now we got to operate under a different set of circumstances. So they from what I was seeing at the stadium is like the quarterback gets the call, he signals to the offense. And another thing is, like, I don't know if Raiola especially, I noticed it with, and of course because it's Raiola and he's a 5-star, you're paying attention to him extra hard when you're there, but with Raiola, I noticed that he was changing protections and stuff before the play. So that might have also contributed to protections. I mean, just when you know what you're doing as protections, that's one of the most important things, because the way protections work is you think you have 5 rushing or you think you have 6 rushing, and you got to call something according to how many bodies need to be covered. And so if the lines step into the right, then that's going to leave somebody open somewhere, and the running back's going to know where that person's coming from. And if he doesn't know the call, then he might think he's coming from one place when he was actually coming from another. So the calls are very important. So I think that contributed to it as well. But again, defensively, it's really hard to judge because they couldn't hit the quarterback.
Couldn't hit the quarterback. That's why, like, I mean, I get excited for the spring game, but from like a watching standpoint, I'm just like, I'm watching really one thing that I'm curious about, and the one thing on Saturday was the quarterback play.
Sure. And Rule knew that. That's why he set it up that way. I mean, he knew that. He's like, everybody's going to want to pay attention to the quarterback, so let's just set this up like a QB showcase and see what the dudes can do. And I love that, honestly.
And, he just went boom, 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 boom. Just rotate. Every single series was rotating, so they got to play with everybody.
And at least they did tackle. I'll tell you this. I watched a couple of other spring games. Michigan's was physical. Yeah. Who else? Texas was set up a lot like ours. Pretty much the same exact setup. Which is, another reason probably why Art shined as well. But Ohio State, their spring game looked like ours in 2022, the one where Casey Thompson had like one series and nobody hit. It's just depressing. It's like I watched the first like 2 series and I just didn't even watch the rest. I was like, there's literally nothing you can see from this. So I like at least that Rule wasn't scared to give us a little preview. People in the stadium were sort of talking about this. It was like, if we got Raiola and this was Frost, they would have given him one series. It would have been extremely vanilla calls, and they would have been keeping him under like wraps. But with Rule, he's not scared of it. He's like, this is who we have. Like, we're going to let him play. And if the hype comes, when the hype comes, let it come. He's going to have to deal with it. So I like that. So
absolutely.
Spring game draft.
Spring game draft results. So these were our teams that we picked. Obviously going to have a scratch on my end there. Malachi didn't even play. I knew he was practicing, so I thought he might play, but it makes sense that he hasn't. Like, they didn't really need to get him out there and everything. But so I'm just gonna go down my list.
And we'll both give each player a rating.
We'll give our ones.
Give an argument for each.
We'll give our ones, and then we'll just go from 1 to 1, 1, 1. All right. So I'll go first. Jalen Lloyd, and how we're doing this, we're scoring each player, not just based on what we think, but just how they did objectively within the game. Based 1 to, should we do 1 to 5 or 1 to 10?
1 to 10, more nuanced.
1 to 10. So 1 to 10. So that's what we're gonna do. It's a little easier. In some instances on the defense, that is easier to do on, like, when you're actually in the stadium. Because they say who tackled every time and who doesn't. Because I like Kenny Bell and everything, but the commentary got like so much, just like they were just talking and shooting the shit instead of like saying much. Like that
the
was
best commentator who was in the booth was Rule.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Love Kenny Bell, but
Yeah.
I mean, spring games are hard to commentate, so I can't criticize too much.
Yeah, let's just start with Lloyd. So definitely, like, he had a couple great catches. Obviously, the big long touchdown run. He showed explosiveness. He showed
doubt about it.
He's gonna be a pretty good player if they, keeps on the same track. Definitely a weapon that we haven't had in a while. Even like Trey Palmer, like, kind of attributes there. So I would think, just based on his performance, with his targets, catches and everything, I give him a solid 8.
8 out of 10.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah. I mean, honestly, like, as I'm sitting here thinking about it, Lloyd is probably had the most perfect game out of everybody on your list, to be honest. There's nothing really like he didn't have any drops or any noticeable, like, oh, he had a drop.
Yeah, 1, which is why I took 2 points off.
Okay. Well, then I'll go with you then. I was going to give it, you swayed me. I was going to go 9 out of 10, but now I'm going to go 8 out of 10 because you reminded me of a drop. So yes, we both go 8 out of 10 on Lloyd.
8 out of 10. There's the consistency. There you go. Yeah. And so do we want to go to Danny K here?
Yeah, let's do Danny Kalen. Might as well. So Danny Kalen, let me write Brooks Kalen. Okay. So Danny Kalen, I think, like we said, it has to sort of be put in perspective a little bit. It's a freshman quarterback, not the expected starter, coming in as a developmental player. Everyone understands that, but also Elite 11. So it's like people have expectations for that as well. I thought he operated well in the pocket, like we said. I thought he didn't make any stupid mistakes, but he also didn't take everything that the defense gave him either. You know what I mean? So, just because of missed throws and certain things like that. So I think overall you have to say average. So I would say 5 out of 10 for Danny Kalen is what I would say.
5. All right. Yeah. So I was going to, like, again, I don't think that he had an absolutely awful day. But just from, like, what he showed, almost at times when I was watching on the TV, I forgot he was even in, which is never, like, a great sign because his drives didn't last all that long. Like, when was the last time he was in, kind of thing. So I'm going to actually give him a 3.
Okay.
And then, he did one of the, cardinal sin of not throwing across your body into the middle late. He was probably trying to, make a play, but that does hamper against you.
So I gave him. So let's just average it right now when we do this. So I gave him 5 out of 10. You gave him 3 out of 10. So average at 4 out of 10. So that's what he's rated. 4 out of 10. Okay. So 4 out of 10, Danny Kalen. 8 out of 10 for Lloyd. Okay. So let's go with Raiola. So I think that, man, like I said, he should have been the first pick off this board. I mean, if we're doing this again and we have hindsight as 2020, like, you'd be crazy not to pick Raiola as first, just because of the amount of talk, the amount of hype. For us to put our biases away and rate it accurately is quite difficult. But also I think, like, there's the interception, but there's the smoothness not operating in the pocket. Man, I say 8 out of 10. That's probably what I give it. 8 out of 10. Yeah.
So for me, it's one of those things that he had a lot of stuff going on minus just the spring game. He had some expectations that he had to go out and perform. He had the most pressure on him than anybody else on that team to go out and show what he can do. And, because of that, I think just based on, what we saw on the field and what, nationally is now being, like, looked at, you got to give him a 10 because he had so many expectations that he couldn't just go out and throw, like, dunk here, dip there. Like,
can I bring you down to a 9? There was the interception. There was you can't have an
Watch
interception.
that interception. Watch that interception.
I know.
That's not on
all
him.
His fault, but it was a little bit.
No.
Okay, 10. So you give him 10 out of 10. I give him 8 out of 10. So his average is 9 out of 10. So 9 out of 10 for Raiola. Okay, so let's go to Barney. Barney's going to be my heavy hitter because I think he did a lot of work for himself, becoming a fan favorite sort of on his way there at the very least. He's undersized. I didn't realize how undersized. Excuse me. He's undersized. I didn't realize how undersized he was. But that doesn't really matter with the type of player he is. He's fast. He's very fast. It's very evident every time he's out there. He's one of the fastest players, and he had a number of really good catches. The ball skills that he showed on the touchdown catch from Heinrich was very impressive. Very, very. That was like top level, like the adjustment on the fly, going full speed. Arguably out on the 1 yard line, but because it's a spring game, got to just give it to him. So yeah, I think he had a number of good plays. He also had the kick return where I believe he thought that Alvano was just somebody celebrating with him. I believe that's what he thought. It's just because he had the gray jersey.
Yeah.
So maybe that knocks him, but I don't know. He's another player, maybe a little like Lloyd. Maybe he had one drop, but I'll give him a 9 out of 10. That's my rating
9.
for him. Yeah.
No, great points. I'll give him a 7. You shouldn't be getting tackled by a kicker.
Get out of here.
7.
You gotta be impartial. 7 out of 10.
I am
What did he
going to
do
be
to deserve a
impartial.
7?
7.
70? A 70 on a test. 70. Yeah. All right. 8 out of 10 is his rating for the average. Okay. All right. Who's next? We got Malachi.
Malachi, that's a scratch. James Williams, I didn't hear his name.
You got to take it into the average. We're averaging it at a 50.
Then it's a 0.
Yeah, that's the point.
Yeah, I know.
Malachi is 0, 10.
James Williams is probably going to be a 0. I didn't hear his name.
He had a sack, but it wasn't called. It was one of those, No. On the play where Raiola, watch it, dude. On the play where Raiola rolls out to the right and hits Fedoni or somebody, like James Williams literally touched him, and they just let the play keep going. So like, you can't give him a 0. You can't. Like,
okay, give him a 1.
He had a sack. So not 1 point. You don't get 1 point for a sack.
You do. You get 1 point.
You don't.
Because I don't remember him. I don't remember him.
Blake, watch the play. He got a sack, and he was in the backfield almost every time. But
okay,
you can't
it's an average of our scores. What's your score?
Yeah, I know, but you picked a receiver that wasn't even playing. Like, you can't be mad that you're getting a 0. James Williams does not.
And I wanted to switch it out for Nair.
All right, you're giving him a 1.
I would have gotten at least a 5 out of Nair. So
you're giving him a 1.
I'll give him a 1. All right, because I'm taking your word for it.
I'm giving him a 6. So which means he has a 3.5.
All right.
3.5 out of 10. So Williams, 3.5 out of 10. Okay. Now you're next guy. Chief Borders. Okay, that's another one. Hard to argue for. I'll give him a 1. But like, he had some good plays. Like, Chief had some great plays. You know what I mean? Like,
and I remember his plays because they announced him, and I knew his number, and I was looking for it. So yeah.
Okay, but what were the plays? Were they TFLs or were they just tackles? One play I noticed, Chief, was a really nice tackle on Dante Dowdell, but it was still like a 6-yard gain. So
okay. He swatted down and pass, not at the line, but like in coverage.
Okay, that's good.
And then he did get behind the line at one point to get the Dowdell down.
That was like 6 yards.
That wasn't.
It wasn't?
No, he had a couple, like, you have to, on defense, if you have more than 4 tackles, you had a good game.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's true. Yeah, and I would argue that James Williams might have had some.
Some.
Okay. Yeah, I watched the game 3 times. Couldn't stop watching the quarterbacks.
But my next one's going to be a 0-2. I think I'm going to give Chief a 6.
Okay, you're going to give Chief a 6. I'll be honest, and because I noticed Chief, and if I'm gonna be an honest man, and I'm gonna give James Williams a 6, I have to give Chief a 6 too. So Chief gets a 6.
Chiefs gets a 6.
Yes.
And now Dowdell.
Yeah, Dowdell. I think Dowdell had a great. I think he had a really great spring game, honestly, especially considering what was Chief again, 6 out of 10. Sorry. So we're on Dowdell. So I think Dowdell had a really good spring game, especially considering the narrative about him going into the spring game was like, oh, he's not the guy. It's Emmett Johnson. He's the guy. And it's like, I like Emmett. I like all these guys. I want them all to be successful. But Dante, I think he ran behind his pads. It was very evident and impressive while I was in the stadium because when you're in the stadium and you're seeing the line of scrimmage like right in front of you like that, you can really just see the force. And I don't know what it is. He just ran behind his pads really well. He had a long touchdown run.
Later in the
it seemed like every time he was touching the ball, it was positive yards. And I think he did a lot for himself in the spring game. So I'm going to give Dante Dowdell a 9 out of 10. He didn't have any fumbles. He did everything that you want him to do. And he had he had the most explosive plays out of any of the running backs. So 9 out of 10 is what I give Dante.
Yeah, he had that later on in the game. I did dock points for that. They started to rotate people at that point, and then he barely got there. His little icky shuffle to the, So I think his number is appropriate on the list, and that's what I'm going to give him.
4. So 4. Okay. So what was 4?
Didn't impress, but didn't do anything that really hampered him. So
what is that?
So let me give him a 5. That's
okay.
5.
So 5. So what is that? A 7?
What did you give
between
him?
mine? I gave him a 9. You gave him a 5. Is that a 7? Is that right? 7 out of 10. Okay, 9 plus 5 equals
It's 7.5.
7.5. Okay. 0.5 out of 10. I hope you're bad at math.
It's 7. It is 7. It's 7.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay. 9 plus 5. So 14. So 20 divided by 14, right? Or 14 divided by 20. Divided by 20. 7. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So 7 out of 10 for Dante Dowdell. I think that's probably appropriate.
Yeah. My next one, Jaden Doss. I didn't notice him
At all. Yeah.
I don't even know if he played.
Yep. Yeah, neither do I. So you got to give a 0, right?
Yeah, you have to give a 0.
Yeah.
I mean,
that might
I'm
sink you
kind
right
of
there.
I'm kind of kicking myself because it was between Nair and him, and I didn't expect Nair to play as much because he was a little older, and but he played a lot, and he showed pretty good spurts there. So that sucks. But yeah, that's a 0.
0 out of 10. Okay. I agree. So Vincent Shavers, 51. I was watching for him, and I noticed he had a couple of tackles. He looked pretty good out there, but again, young guy, and the format just doesn't lend itself. I mean, how much defensive specifics have you heard anybody talking about? Hardly any. So it's just hard. But I did notice him. I said, "There's 51. Ooh, he made a tackle." I definitely said that while I was at the game. So because of that reason, I'm going to give him a 4 out of 10.
Wow, a 4. Okay, I'm giving him 0 because he didn't. I looked up your guys' numbers, by the way, so I was looking for it. I wasn't like I was just like looking at my people. Because my people were going to be obvious. I had to. It was a lot less that I had to do. Yours, I had to look for them. So because a lot of them were on. Again, defense. Well, 2 of them.
Yes.
But yeah, so I mean, that's 0. I didn't.
Okay, so if I gave him a 4, you gave him a 0, so he's got a 2. He's got a 2.
All right.
Okay, so all we really got to do is add up the totals, and whoever has more points wins. As simple as that. So we both gave Lloyd an 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
Rayola a 9 out of 10.
Yeah,
Malachi a 0 out of 10.
17.
Chief Borders a 6 out of 10. Yeah, so 17 plus 6. And then Doss a 0.
That's
So
23.
17.
Yeah.
23. So you 23. 17 plus 6. Okay. So we gave Kalen a 4 out of 10. Barney a 8 out of 10. That's 12. William, we'll do Williams last. Dowdell just because math. Dowdell a 7 out of 10. So 12 plus 7 is 19. Shavers a 2 out of 10. So 21. And Williams with the points that are going to win me the 2024 spring draft.
No, that's
3.5 out of 10. 24.5 to 23. I think that honestly is not bullshit. And here's why. 2 of your players got a 0 objectively, and we both said it. So
yeah,
like,
and
once you're there,
I texted you before the game and said I didn't know Malachi wasn't playing. I want to switch with Nair, and you said no
so
takesies
mad.
backsies.
You're so mad.
Because I think it's bullshit. Because when we sitting here doing the draft, I said, "Is he playing?" You're like, "Yeah, I think so."
Look,
and you knew full well he wasn't.
No, I didn't know full well. First of all, let me say that honestly, I had no idea until a couple days later, and then I sort of laughed to myself, and then I was like, he drafted them. But second of all, I didn't say like 15 minutes before we did it, hey, we're doing the spring draft. I gave you like 24 hours, so we had time to do research.
But
did I do
also
as much? Did I do any research for this specifically? Absolutely not. But here was my approach. Look at my team. It's balanced. There's a running back, there's a wide receiver, there's 2 defenders, and there's a quarterback. You know what I mean? Versus look at your team. It's very wide receiver heavy. So even if they had played, they wouldn't have gotten as many reps. They just wouldn't have. Now, Malachi Coleman is 6'4" and runs under a 10.5 100. So I guarantee that they're going to try to throw to him if he did play. But simple as that. I mean, it was you were very top heavy as a team. So it was simple as that.
As simple as that. Simple as that.
I was more consistent. You were very top heavy.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
We can go over. Look, if we're gonna do this like realistically, it's watching every single play 25 times and making a note of what each and every individual player did. Are we really gonna do that? Probably not. So when it comes to James Williams and when it comes to Vincent Shavers, I watched for those dudes when I watched it back, and when I was there at the game, I watched for him as well. So I'm not lying to you when I say, "Oh, there's Vincent Shavers, number 51. Oh, he made a tackle." I think
you're lying to yourself.
You know what I mean?
By not giving Raiola a 10. So.
No, because he threw an interception. I gave an argument for it. Look, the reason it's not BS is because every single point was justified and agreed on.
You didn't think you were going to win, and now you're thrilled. So you're like, "This is how." This is how.
I wasn't even waiting this the whole time. I was just trying to be as honest as I could, and that's just how it shakes out, man. That's just how it goes. So,
well.
It is what it is.
That's going to be it for us today on the Cornhusker Corner.
Shout out to Isaac. Shout out to Isaac, the guy I met in the stands. New subscriber. Shout out.
Shout out, Isaac. Always remember that there's no place like